Israel and Hezbollah have a long and bloody history. Their conflict is rooted in the complex geopolitics of the Middle East. Hezbollah, a Shia Islamist political party and militant group based in Lebanon, emerged in the 1980s. Its primary goal was to resist Israeli occupation of Lebanon. Over the decades, there have been numerous clashes and wars. These conflicts have resulted in significant casualties on both sides. The relationship remains deeply antagonistic. Both sides view the other as a threat to their existence. Hezbollah has grown in strength over time. It possesses a formidable arsenal of rockets and missiles. Israel considers Hezbollah a major security challenge. It has launched military operations to degrade the group's capabilities. The underlying issues that sparked the conflict remain unresolved. This makes any prospect of a lasting peace elusive. The recent escalation in 2024 is another chapter in this long and tragic saga. The year 2024 has witnessed a dangerous escalation in the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Tensions flared up, leading to a spiral of violence with neither side backing down. The current round of fighting began after a period of relative calm. The trigger was a series of events along the border. These events remain shrouded in mystery. Each side blames the other for the initial provocation. However, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. Israel launched airstrikes on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. They claimed these were in response to rocket attacks from Hezbollah. Hezbollah retaliated with even more rocket fire into Israel. This back-and-forth exchange of fire has caused fear and destruction on both sides of the border. The situation remains highly volatile with no end in sight. Both sides seem determined to inflict maximum damage on the other. The risk of a wider conflagration is very real. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict cannot be understood in isolation. It is deeply intertwined with the regional dynamics of the Middle East. Iran and Syria play pivotal roles in this complex equation. Iran is a staunch supporter of Hezbollah. It provides the group with financial, military, and logistical support. Iran sees Hezbollah as a crucial ally in its regional struggle for power and influence. Syria, under the Assad regime, also plays a crucial role. It serves as a conduit for Iranian support to reach Hezbollah in Lebanon. Syria has its own interests in supporting Hezbollah. It views the group as a bulwark against Israeli influence. The involvement of Iran in Syria adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. It makes finding a resolution even more challenging. Any attempt to resolve the Israel-Hezbollah conflict must take into account the interests and calculations of these regional players. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has had a devastating impact on civilians on both sides of the border. The human cost of this conflict is immense and heartbreaking. In Israel, rocket attacks from Hezbollah have caused widespread fear and disruption. People are forced to live in bomb shelters, schools and businesses have been closed, the constant threat of rocket fire has traumatized the population. In Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes have resulted in civilian casualties. Homes, hospitals, and infrastructure have been destroyed. The Lebanese people are facing a growing humanitarian crisis. They lack access to basic necessities like food, water, and medical care. The conflict has also exacerbated existing tensions within Lebanon. The country is deeply divided along sectarian lines. The conflict has inflamed these divisions, making it even harder to find a path toward peace and stability. Section 5. The world reacts. International response. The international community has reacted with alarm and concern to the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The situation has drawn widespread attention, with people around the world closely following the developments through various media outlets. Governments and international organizations have issued statements condemning the violence. These statements reflect a unified stance against the ongoing hostilities, emphasizing the need for immediate action to prevent further loss of life and destruction. They are calling for restraint and a ceasefire. Diplomatic efforts are being ramped up, with numerous calls for both sides to lay down their arms and engage in peaceful negotiations. The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has expressed its unwavering support. This support is rooted in a long-standing alliance, and the U.S. has reiterated its commitment to Israel's security. However, even the US has urged Israel to exercise restraint. Balancing its support, the US has also highlighted the importance of minimizing civilian casualties and avoiding actions that could further escalate the conflict. It has also called on Hezbollah to cease its rocket attacks. The US has condemned the rocket attacks as unacceptable, and has urged Hezbollah to halt its aggressive actions immediately. European countries have also condemned the violence. Leaders across Europe have voiced their concerns, stressing the need for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. They have called for a de-escalation of tensions and a return to dialogue. European diplomats are actively working to bring both parties to the negotiating table, emphasizing dialogue as the only viable path to lasting peace. The European Union has significant influence in the region. Leveraging its diplomatic and economic ties, the EU is striving to play a pivotal role in mediating the conflict. It is trying to use its leverage to bring about a ceasefire. The EU's efforts are focused on creating a framework for a sustainable ceasefire that addresses the concerns of both sides. The United Nations has been actively engaged in trying to mediate a ceasefire. The UN's involvement underscores the international community's commitment to resolving the conflict through peaceful means. The UN Security Council has held emergency meetings to discuss the crisis. These meetings aim to coordinate a global response and find a consensus on the best course of action. However, finding a solution that is acceptable to all parties involved has proven to be extremely difficult. The complexity of the conflict, with its deep-rooted historical and political dimensions, poses significant challenges to achieving a lasting peace. Section 6. Diplomatic efforts and stalemates. Despite the international pressure to end the violence, diplomatic efforts to achieve a ceasefire have been met with limited success. Both Israel and Hezbollah have dug in their heels. They are unwilling to make concessions. Israel insists that it will continue its military operations until Hezbollah is disarmed. It views Hezbollah's rocket arsenal as an existential threat. Israel demands guarantees that Hezbollah will no longer be able to launch attacks against its territory. Hezbollah, for its part, refuses to be disarmed. It argues that its weapons are necessary to deter Israeli aggression. Hezbollah is demanding an end to Israeli airstrikes and a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanese territory. These seemingly irreconcilable positions have made it extremely difficult for mediators to find common ground. The international community is running out of options. It is unclear how to break the current impasse. Section 7. Possible futures, scenarios and outcomes. The future trajectory of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict remains uncertain, with many variables at play. Several scenarios are possible, each with its own set of implications for the region and the world. These scenarios range from prolonged conflict to potential peace, each carrying significant consequences. One scenario is a prolonged war of attrition, where the conflict drags on without a clear end in sight. In this scenario, neither side is able to achieve a decisive military victory, leading to a continuous cycle of violence and retaliation. The fighting continues for an extended period, with devastating consequences for both sides, including significant loss of life and destruction of infrastructure. This scenario would likely lead to a humanitarian catastrophe in Lebanon, with thousands of civilians displaced and in need of urgent assistance, further destabilizing the region. Another scenario is a negotiated ceasefire, where diplomatic efforts manage to halt the immediate violence. In this scenario, international pressure and the threat of further escalation force both sides to the negotiating table, resulting in a temporary halt to hostilities. A ceasefire agreement is reached, but the underlying issues remain unresolved, leaving the potential for future conflict. This scenario would provide a temporary respite from the violence, allowing civilians to return to a semblance of normal life. However, it would not address the root causes of the conflict, such as political, territorial, and ideological disputes. A third scenario, though less likely, is a wider regional war, where the conflict spreads beyond the borders of Israel and Lebanon. In this scenario, the conflict escalates beyond Israel and Lebanon, drawing in neighboring countries and potentially leading to a larger regional war. Iran and Syria become directly involved, leading to a conflagration that engulfs the entire Middle East, with widespread destruction and loss of life. This scenario would be catastrophic, with global implications, potentially drawing in major world powers and leading to a significant geopolitical crisis. Section 8. The need for resolution. The escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the Middle East. This region has long been a hotspot for geopolitical tensions, and the current situation only highlights the deep-seated issues that have yet to be resolved. It underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and lasting resolution to the long-standing conflicts in the region. The complexities of these conflicts are rooted in historical, religious, and territorial disputes that require nuanced and multifaceted approaches. A lasting solution cannot be achieved through military means alone. Military actions may provide temporary relief, but often lead to further animosity and destruction. Both sides must recognize that violence only begets more violence. The cycle of retaliation and retribution must be broken to pave the way for peace. Dialogue, however difficult, is the only way forward. Engaging in open and honest conversations can help bridge the gap between opposing viewpoints and foster mutual understanding. The international community has a crucial role to play in facilitating such a dialogue. Global powers and regional stakeholders must come together to support peace initiatives and mediate discussions. It must use its influence to bring both sides to the negotiating table. Diplomatic pressure and incentives can encourage conflicting parties to consider peaceful solutions. The goal should be to address the legitimate concerns of both Israel and Hezbollah, while creating a framework for peaceful coexistence. This framework should include security guarantees, economic cooperation, and cultural exchanges to build trust and collaboration. The alternative is unthinkable. A continued cycle of violence will only lead to more suffering, instability, and the risk of a wider conflagration. The humanitarian cost is immense, with countless lives disrupted and communities torn apart. The stakes are too high to allow this conflict to fester. The potential for regional destabilization and global repercussions makes it imperative to seek resolution. The time for bold and decisive action is now. Leaders must rise to the occasion, prioritize peace over politics, and work tirelessly to end the suffering and build a brighter future.